All right, July 30th. I got some rain coming here soon, so I don't have much time, but as in episode 3 when I laid out, showed you guys how to lay out a building. I got all my lines, string lines back up. I did it the same way that I showed you guys, only I based my measurements off the back of this storm shelter, so I was square to the storm shelter. And then I got the main part of the house laid out as well. I don't have those string lines up right now, but I'm going to work on the garage part first because those are the brackets I have. So today I got 3 sturdy wall brackets I got to mount on this storm shelter, so I'm going to try to get that done before it storms. And then the rest of the columns are going to go on round footings, 16-inch round footings. So I'm going to try to get those ready tomorrow. So I'm going to get after it and try to get these done before this rain gets here. We are going to start marking out the footings for the posts and drilling the holes. So the first thing I'm going to do, I looked at the print, saw what my spacing of my posts are based off my plans, and I'm marking. I got the string lines all set up on the garage, and I'm going to start marking those. So what I'll do is I'll start at the back corner of the garage, and I'll measure up, and I'll put a mark on my string line, and then I'll go back and mark where I want to drill the hole with spray paint. And I'll do that for, I think I'm going to do that for 3 sides of the garage. The front I'm not going to mark because I'm going to have to do this in 2 pours, and I need to be able to get a concrete truck in, so I'll do those last. Probably the front of the house and the front of the garage I'll do all last. So hopefully we'll make some progress today. I think the only material I'm waiting on to arrive is my laminated columns, and they're supposed to arrive next week, so it's not a big deal because I'm not going to be ready anyway. So alright guys, so I was going back and checking all my measurements one last time, and I found a mistake, so I'm glad I did that. So my point here is always double check when you mark these holes. Now this one wouldn't have hurt me too bad because it's an end wall, so it wasn't a wall that was supporting a truss. So I was off 9 inches on this one. I have no idea what I did, but I remeasured, and it just looked off to me. So I remeasured, and I was off 9 inches. So I'm going to remark this one. I have no idea what I did. I mean, I'm out here by myself marking this. It's hot, but you can see there's my mark, and it needed to be over here. You know, an easy one where I have 2 string lines meet where I need it to be in the corner. So I'm not 100% sure what I did, but that's how mistakes happen. So I'm glad I checked. Now, there's a sliding glass door that's going to be between these 2 posts right here, and it's 6 foot. So I would have been all right, but it would have thrown, it would have definitely thrown the spacing of the windows and the door and everything off that I'm looking for inside the house. So I'm glad I found it. I'm going to remark here quick, but that's the only one I found that was off. Everything else looks like it's good to go. So I got all the string lines down except for right here. So I'm going to remark this one, and then I'm going to get to drilling. So all right, so I'm working on preparing these footings. I got a truck coming tomorrow, 10:30. I'm going to pour 9 yards, which I think is about 27 holes. These holes are about 18 inches in diameter, and they go down about 4.5 feet. So I take these sonotubes, which are ridiculously expensive. I wish I knew where I could get something different. But instead of using the whole sonotube, usually I cut them into 16-inch sections. And then I lay 2x4s, usually do 2 holes together, 2x4s and stakes down alongside, and then I screw through the 2x4 into the top of the sonotube, and then I level the top of the sonotube with the transit. And then the hole fills up. Once it gets to the sonotube, it fills the inside of the sonotube up, and then that's my footing. And it usually creates, the bottom is usually quite a bit bigger than the top. It's 18, 19 inches versus the sonotube's roughly 16. So once you backfill all that really helps with uplift as well. So that's how I do it. I don't know, my tubes aren't perfectly straight, but once you put the wet set brackets in there, you put them along with your string line and they'll be perfectly straight. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 done. So that means I got 19 more to do before tomorrow, 10:30. So I better get cooking. I got half the holes drilled. I got my sonotubes in, bracing. I got all my string lines up, so I made sure my spacing's right. I made sure that the posts are going to sit on the footings correctly, and we should be in good shape. So we'll take a look here. I got the correct brackets laid out by each hole, because on the main house I have 4-ply laminated posts, and on the garage I have 3-ply. And then in the corners, those are a universal bracket, so I don't have to wet set those. I already got these on my storm shelter. A couple of these I had to use full 4-foot footings just because I had a lot of fill there, so I didn't want to dig a nice hole. I got down to solid ground there though, so I got a good base. But then most of these I cut in half, and they're 24 inches, so I don't know if you can see in there. The bottom part of the hole is 18 to 20 inches, and then once it gets up to the sonotube, it'll go down to 16. All right, well, we got it done. And let me tell you, that was no easy task. So, we had a couple obstacles. Sorry I couldn't do more filming, but my hands were full and we were definitely busy. But the concrete driver drove over one of my string line stakes. Had a footing move on me, so there was just some things during the pour that took a lot more time than what I thought. And then, of course, it's in the 80s, the sun's out, so this concrete set up pretty fast, but between my dad and I, we were able to get the brackets set. I think we got started a little bit late on those, but we got them in there and they're already pretty solid, so I think we're going to be good. But I'll try to do a little bit more filming the next time we pour. So I got 27 poured and I have 28 more to go, so we will try to do a little bit more filming on that, but we're making progress. All right, it's August 6th. Yesterday, I went through and I drilled the remaining 28 holes that I need for footings. And today I formed up 18 that I'm gonna pour tomorrow, and those are the remaining ones on the house and the garage. And then there's 10 left on the porch that I have the holes drilled and my 2x4s laid out, but I can't pour those because I don't have the brackets. And they're thinking the brackets will be in probably Thursday or Friday. But I can't take the chance to wait, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this in 2 more pours, which will make it a little bit easier. But I'm gonna pour 18 tomorrow. That way these get set up good and solid. My laminated Posts are coming in this week, so if I get these poured tomorrow, they'll have a good week to set up and cure before I start putting up walls. So, and then, you know, I'll try to pour this at the end of the week if I can. If I can't, I'll get to it next week. But it was my anniversary, so we're going on a little trip this weekend. So I want to get this done before I go, so when I come back, all my materials being delivered and we can get after it and start framing this thing up. Hopefully we can gain a little time. There's just no way about this that isn't hard. When you're doing stuff like this by yourself, it's tough, but you know, it's rewarding. You save a lot of money. So if you have the option to do it, I mean, you can do it. I mean, you can do pretty much anything you put your mind to. And if you've never done some of this stuff before, that's how you learn. I mean, that's how I've taught myself how to do all this stuff, is I just try it. I do my research, I read, watch videos, how-to videos, and try to do the best research I can. And then I come up with a plan for myself that I feel like will work for myself. There's always more than one way to do all this. So you got to find out what works best for you. Everybody's mind's a little bit different, but all right, we got our next 18 footings poured, and now we got to put all the string lines back up, and then I will go and make my measurements and make marks right on these so I know where to put my wet set brackets. So as soon as you get your footings poured, you got to get your string lines back up. And then you got to know what your measurements are so you can mark your lines so you can put your brackets in the right spot. And it's definitely crucial on the sides that carry the trusses. You want those to be as close as possible. So what I do is I take measurements off the side I already did and duplicate those measurements for the other side that carries the trusses. The end walls aren't. You can be off a little bit and it'd be okay, but if you're off a couple inches on the ones that carry the trusses, it's going to be a little more difficult for it to look good and to square it up. So,
well, I see you were asking for a cameraman. Maybe I should apply for that job.
an intern is what I need.
At my age, I'm too old to be an intern. Got your level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pull it up. It's hard because when the 2x4 or the 2x6
Straight up and down.
straight up and down, it messes with my eyes. That's what I want to follow. All right, so for these porch posts, I want the bottom of the post to be above the finished concrete. So I'm actually using wet set brackets. So you'll be able to see the brackets on the porch, but I'm gonna paint them black. So I think it'll look pretty cool. I'm gonna use cedar posts, and then I'll have the black metal. And then where I hook my headers together, I'm gonna make some black connectors, or I'm gonna take steel, cut them with a plasma cutter, and then bolt them together, and those will be black too. So it'll kind of all go together. But to get it, since I'm doing these footings and everything before the finished concrete, obviously, I'm building a little box that sets the post up where it needs to be. So I figured out what my grade needed to be for my finished concrete on my porch. And then what I'm doing is I'm framing up with a 2x8, so I have room to put gravel and my concrete in. So I'll have this little box that my wet set bracket will sit on top, and then once the finished concrete comes up, it'll be right at the bottom of that. And that bottom of that metal bracket's up about an 1/8 inch, so water will never consistently sit on my posts. So the first thing I do, since I'm using 2x8s, and the 2x8s I have are actually 7 1/4, so I'm setting my laser level 7 1/4 inches below the grade I want to set my sonotube. So that's what I just did. And then I'll re-zero it when I make my box, and zero my box where the top of my little footing is going to be, and I'll know that's my zero. That's where my finished concrete is going to be. Probably make more sense once you see it. I'll show you one of the finished ones I got, but I think it's going to work real nice. There's one of the forms I already made. So there's my sonotube down there. So I'll fill that up just like normally, and then this box will get filled up, and the concrete will be flush with that, and that's gonna be the top of my porch. But my wet set bracket is gonna cover this whole thing, so the concrete will be able to be poured right up against that, and then I'll just put stress cuts off the edge to keep it cracking where I want it. So I was able to do 2 of these because I had 2 of the brackets I needed for the porch, because I needed 6x6 brackets. So I've completed 2 of them, but I'm waiting for the rest of my brackets. I'll show you a completed one. So if you can see, that just sets up there, and my post will actually come out to sit over this, and then my concrete will come around this. And then if I need to, I can always trim this out on the top with some nice landscaping blocks that go with my concrete porch. And by doing this, my post doesn't sit below the concrete. I don't have to worry about water running in there and sitting on them. Maybe it's overkill, but this is my house. And even if it wasn't my house, if I was doing it for somebody else, I would do it the same way, because I just believe that those posts should be above the grade. So that's what I'm doing.